these days, mostly it's our computers and our phones that are open to help answer any questions you have as we help you move forward. The first step for our transfer students, of course, is to apply to Grandview, get accepted. And to do that, we need your official college transcripts so that we can have them reviewed officially. And then that's when we pass it on to an advisor who can walk you through the steps and explain all the nuances that are the teacher education program. The teacher ed program has a special place in my heart. Several years ago, before I came over to work in the admissions office, I worked in the teacher education program, and it was one of the highlights of my career when I was young, and I appreciated it. I saw how hard our teachers in training work and prepare, and their passion is so real and it's so strong. And it's usually someone who wants to go into education because they can't imagine doing anything else. And I find that so heartwarming and lifting. And so we'll walk through the processes. Then after you get admitted to Grandview, then what? Then what do we do for you? And that's when I'll ask Dr. Grow to step in and talk a little bit about our program and the first steps once a student arrives at Grandview.
Yeah, so once a student arrives at Grandview, then we'll get you set up with classes for your first semester. Usually the transfer students, we try to help out just to make sure that their end goal, is really in mind so that their classes are aligning up, because they have quite a few classes coming in. And so we like to work pretty closely with them to make sure that they have all their pre-education classes out of the way. So whether you're coming in for secondary or elementary, you'll still have kind of that same battery of, you need a speech class and an English class, and you need introduction to education and educational psychology and human relations, or better otherwise known as social issues in education, and then instructional planning and assessment. And so for some of the transfer students who might be farther along in their program, we'll make an exception, because we kind of have 3 phases to our program. The first phase is that the pre-ed, those classes that I just listed, and you need, it depends if you're elementary, then you need a math for elementary teachers and a science class too. And if you're secondary, you need 12 credits in your content area. And so all of that is phase 1. And then phase 2 is methods and practicum. And that's where you really spend some time digging into the education content. And you'll be taking, if you're in elementary, like methods of science and social studies, math, reading methods, and then having some concurrent practicums along with that. And then the phase 3 is student teaching. And so you apply for that 1 year ahead of student teaching. So we have plenty of time to find your placements and just make sure that we get it lined up with what you're hoping for. Some people, want to go student teach or do some different things, and we can make that work if we have more advanced notice with that. So they apply a year in advance for that. And what was I going to say? We are not requiring Praxis Core anymore for program admission. The state of Iowa passed a new law this summer that's no longer required, but we really do pride ourselves at Grandview on helping students. We kind of enjoyed that test as a way to flag students who might need some additional support, and we had kind of like a tiered system where we would have writing interventions and just additional support. And so we found new ways to do that we're pretty excited about here at Grandview, which is one of the unique things we do to really support our students so that they're successful, because they still do need to take that Praxis too. And so we just want to make sure that they have those test taking skills and feel the confidence in being able to do that. So we have some systems that we're working the kinks out of this year to make sure that we can get them supported for that. So yeah, so we'll take a close look at your classes. You need 1 endorsement area when you're coming out of Grandview, at least. A lot of our students do more, just kind of depends on what they come in with. And for some of our transfer students, they're ready to go right into phase 2 with the methods and practicum if they have enough credits and enough of that the pre-course work done that sometimes we'll make exceptions and allow them to take the human or the social issues in education and or the instructional planning and assessment. And that planning and assessment class is one that we don't transfer. And so sometimes we'll let them take it along with their methods class if they, if that can help them with their progression in the program, because we don't want to, say, oh, well, you just have to wait a semester to take this one class. So we make a way for that to work, and we'll look at your schedule pretty closely. So
is it pretty common for transfers who have everything in line to be able to start in the program in the semester that they begin?
If everything's in line, especially with a lot of my DMAC ones where they've been really planning ahead and, or progressing along towards that goal, then yeah, that has been happening lately with some great success.
And do you accept students into the program both in the fall and spring, or only one time a year?
Both in the fall and spring. Yep. We do the application deadline is November 1st and April 1st. And then we review it usually right after grades are submitted. So we can take a look at what happened in that fall semester to admit for the spring, because you do need a 3.0 GPA in cumulative and in your endorsement and major area to be admitted to the program. And then that's what you need to maintain in order to graduate.
So it's really good to plan ahead. It's really good to get your credits evaluated early. It's really good to talk with an education advisor as you're working toward your transfer. It will make your life so much simpler and get your questions answered so earlier. So that's something we can help our students with as our transfer admissions team here, to get everything in, get the questions answered, get meetings set up, and get things outlined, a plan of study outlined for our students. So super. And Dr. Grow is the guru of advising, and especially in her program. It's amazing. So we sure appreciate that. So
yeah, I really enjoy working with transfer students because sometimes they have this whole block of classes like, okay, if I can take this at wherever I am, and I'm like, take this one because that'll double dip into these other areas. And so I think planning ahead is really good because especially like reading English language arts. Well, if you take this interpretation of literature or this American lit class instead of, this kind of literature, whatever, then that double dips and you can get a whole nother endorsement. So just making sure that you ask the questions and plan ahead is really smart.
hey, speaking of endorsements, I have students sometimes ask me, which endorsements should I get? And that's a hard question for me to answer because I say, well, you've got to follow your heart and your mind and where's your passion? Are there some that are still more marketable than others if they ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Follow your heart, follow your soul about where, why do you want to go into teaching? And sometimes our secondary folks really are passionate about their content area and spreading the love for that particular content area. And that's the reason they want to do it. And maybe they'll add on another special ed type endorsement or ELL endorsement to kind of make them more well-rounded or more marketable, or reading or something like that. But then the elementary ones, they're more rounded in terms of preparation to teach in all subject areas. And so then sometimes they do a little bit more wrestling with what they want to have for their endorsement. And the reading one, I always say, if you want K2, that's when they learn to read. And oftentimes I've heard principals make a stack of resumes, reading, not reading. If I'm looking at a K2 job, I'm looking from the reading pile. And so a lot of our K2 will choose that reading because of that. But it's really marketable too. It depends on the type of district. I was up in a district with a high population of ELL students who were saying, forget the reading, I can handle that. Can they please have the ELL? And so it kind of depends on what type of district. So for them, the ELL was more important. And we have quite a few right now who are wanting to teach in dual language schools. And so they are getting ELL in Spanish. And that has been a really fun group of students to work with, just because they're challenging us to reach out and give them lots of different types of placements in some of the dual language programs around the state. And so that's been fun. And they'll be really marketable with that. And those set of endorsements. And then we have now 3 instructional strat endorsements that are also like hotcakes. Like our grads get jobs right away, sometimes even before they're done student teaching, when they come out with special ed, these instructional strat endorsements. So we have strat 1, and that's a separate K-8 and 512 endorsement, kind of the push in, pull out, mild learning disability. And then we have strat 2, ID, intellectual disability, which is like alternative assessments, the students who need to be on those, maybe more heavy needs, and that's a K-12 endorsement. And then we have strat 2 LDBD, which is learning behavior. And so those are the kiddos who need a lot of extra patience and love, and our folks who go into that are just really passionate about helping kids. And and those are really marketable endorsements. We also have STEM, social sciences, math. So you can kind of mix and match and make it where what your heart feels like you're going to do. So
From getting placed to do student teaching, do students have a say in where they get placed, or how does that process work?
yeah, so a year out, they fill out their application, and that's when they can kind of make some indications about what is resonating with their, what kind of district they want to live in or work in someday. And we try to place them. I think they give a ranking 1, 2, 3, and we try to place them in at least their top 3, one of their top 3 districts for one of their placements. They have 2 placements typically. Some go all 16 weeks in the same placement, but usually we do 8 and 8. And so that gives us a chance to kind of give them placements in different types of districts. And we're finding with this COVID that it's not such a big deal to be a little more creative about where people are placed, that we've got some students who'd rather live at home or live with fiance who lives in this town or something. And just as long as we can work out the supervision aspect of it, that we've been able to be a little bit more creative with that kind of thing. So
Do you have any students that are doing 100% online student teaching?
we do. We tried to split it. So they would do 8 weeks of that and then 8 weeks of an in-person. And so, yeah, we do have a couple placed right now who are with a teacher who was assigned to that modality or whatever. So it's been an interesting semester.
I bet it has.
Placements. For sure.
Yeah, for all of us, for sure. Yeah.
So Lindsay, can I have you clarify real quick? Because we do have students who come in and they say, well, I'm interested in special ed. So they need to, that's an endorsement now, not a particular, it's not like secondary ed, elementary ed. It's one or the other plus the special ed endorsement, correct?
Yeah, so if you're elementary, then you can be elementary and then get one of those 3 endorsements. So if you wanted strat 2, that would allow you to push into the secondary level or the elementary. Most choose kind of like, I think I want to work with this age of kid and then get the degree and match the strat up with that. But you can also get secondary. And then if you're doing secondary, you can't just be special ed. You have to choose English, math, science, all social sciences, one of those content areas, and then partner that with the special ed. And a lot of people, we also offered those endorsements, the 3 strats, reading and ESL at the graduate level. And so sometimes people will come back and get that endorsement or start towards it as they finish their undergrad degree. If they've already chosen one and they have a couple extra spots for classes, maybe in their senior year, they'll pick up 1 or 2 to start towards their grad degree, which is 33 credits and a 15 credit core, a teacher leadership core. So it's an endorsement and the teacher leadership core. So maybe that was more than you bargained for, but
That's perfect. I think they want to know,
Lots of options.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Dr. Grow, Lindsay, tell us why you think a student should choose Grandview as their transfer school. What do we offer that's special or different?
yeah, I think we are really equipped to personally get to know our students and encourage them along the way, and that our students have multiple encounters with our faculty. And so you'll have them in an intro class, and then you'll have them in a methods class, and they'll supervise you in the field, and you'll have them in an endorsement class, and so they really challenge you and say, well, this maybe isn't your best work, or, well, what do you think about this? Or just kind of make sure, and hold you accountable and get to know you a little bit better. So I think that's something unique about Grandview that isn't necessarily unique to the ed department specifically. I think all the professors really care about our students and do the best, job for them. But with the ed program specifically, I love being in this area because we have access to so many different types of districts. And we really try to place you in a variety of districts, which all have a little different flavor in terms of the work of the teacher and the expectations, curriculum, that kind of thing. And so seeing that really helps students, just learn different approaches for education. So I think that's a really great asset for Grandview. And then our students themselves, I just love them. They try so hard and they have such great stories and backgrounds, and they really make an effort to get involved. Like the bilingual students I was talking about earlier have started Bilingual Education Student Organization, BESO, and they, pal together, and they did a Dia de los Muertos thing here last week, and but they also reach out to area high schools and go tell their stories to like Spanish classes and encourage attendance, or, people to come to college. And they have attended the National Association for Bilingual Educators in Orlando and Las Vegas. And so they kind of make that, something that they work towards doing so they can continue to grow their skill set. And then we also have the Education Club that does some outreach activities and does speakers and, just helps to create the community here at Grandview and look out for each other and that kind of thing. So I love watching the students study together and, just support each other. And I can always be like, where's so-and-so? Oh, let me text her. Oh yeah, she's, today, whatever happened to her, and I'll take her papers to her. So, and they just support each other and really get to know each other. And that's, I think, something that you want in a college experience, is to feel like you belong and to feel like people, notice when you're not there, and they care about you and ask about you, and, make sure that you're having the opportunity to do your best. So
I know that you have to have a GPA of 3.0. That's the minimum to get admitted to the program. Let's suppose the student is going along in the program and a couple of their classes, they don't quite meet that. What's their recourse if they fall slightly below the 3.0?
Yeah, so then they're kind of given a semester to work it out, because life happens. Some people have things happen in their life, and very unsurprisingly, they need to turn their attention to other things for a little bit, and that GPA might slip. And so we usually put them on a notification of concern plan, where we just support them and set some goals for them. And we'll set up kind of a monthly check-in to make sure that they're headed towards the right path for the next semester. And then if that trouble persists, though, then we try to open their eyes up to be like, oh, this seems harder for you than maybe, are you sure this is your goal? Is this the right trajectory? Where else, and we give them resources to think about other avenues, because sometimes when they're not achieving, it's because like their heart's not in it, and maybe like education's not really for them. So we help them think about what a good fit would be so they can continue to pursue their college graduation degree dreams.
Super, thank you.
Yeah.
I have another one. I'm sorry I keep asking these questions, but I'm curious about our placement rate for our teacher ed grads. How are they doing? Do they usually stay here in Iowa? Do a lot of them go back to their hometowns?
I don't know.
general?
Maybe you have the formal statistics on that. I don't know if any of you do, but I can tell you how my heart feels.
Yeah, or anecdotally, if you have some stories about where students have gone after they left here.
Yeah, I can tell you that they have a very high success rate on the praxis tests that usually people pass that first time when they take that, and we've had a couple need to take it a second time, but usually they're all passing. We've had a couple stragglers who either didn't take it because they changed their career path, or they took it a few times and didn't. But that's like very, very rare. Usually everybody's passing that and then and getting placed. And I see everything, you know, like going back to their hometown in Wisconsin, one student did and worked with us during her student teaching because they needed a different type of testing in that state. And so we helped her so she could complete that at TPA during, even though we don't require it, they did. And so we helped her with that a little bit so she could go back up there. But a lot of them are in the Des Moines area. They get placed where they student teach. Some of them do because they fall in love with their, you know, administrators are like, we need you here. So yeah, so there's a pretty high success rate and I get calls frequently. Tell me about so-and-so. I'm, you know, they've applied. And so I think that's the beauty of the small school, even if I'm not on their reference list necessarily, you know, they'll still call and check in, and it's good to know everybody. You know, I think a bigger school, you'd be like, who? But, you know, like I've worked with most of our students, and so it's good.
Yeah, super. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone has any questions, either the advisors, Sherry or Josh, or Danielle or Anna, if you have any questions, especially for Dr. Grow, while we've got her complete attention here, we'd love you to ask any questions you got.
So is it safe to say that if a student has their AA degree from a community college that they'll essentially have all the general education requirements met at Grandview, or is that not the case?
Typically, yes. I think there's, for someone with an AA, there might be, I think there's one, is there a senior seminar type class that the student has, liberal learning class, that a student would have to take? It's a Grandview only class.
Okay.
And that's for all majors. That we're not, there might be some pre-education requirements that a student would have to work toward getting admitted to the education program.
Okay. And then, yeah, usually like if a student's thinking elementary ed, I have them take Intro to Ed, Children's Lit, Ed Psych, Math for elementary teachers, kind of those types of elective classes as part of their AA. And usually that works out well for them in their transfer as well. So
awesome. Thank you.
And the nice thing too about coming in, for a student coming in with an AA degree, is that it will typically eliminate like 3 gen ed classes that they would have had to take if they didn't have the AA degree. So there is that benefit to it as well. Okay. And then when they transfer, they know they get to spend their last 2-3 years, however long it takes them, specifically in the area that they're passionate about.
Right. And that's, you know, that's kind of, sometimes it's kind of hard to explain, but you get all the generals done at the community college. And then, yeah, like you said, you can focus specifically on your major. So that's kind of a good incentive for them to just kind of get their AA done and then transfer on.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, it seems like when I'm advising the ones with their AA, it's just a lot easier because I'm not having to worry about working in all of the theater or, you know, just like the class that the schedule might be harder, you know, when they're in the education, then they're here and they're doing those classes and they're ready to go. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And sounds like you're picking good classes for the elementary ed ones too. Although I do love our children's lit teacher here, but you know, it's all good. Sometimes it's hard to, if I work with one in advance, you know, it's hard to pick which ones they should take over there, but usually we make it work. So, yeah.
Well, like we had said, we're awfully happy to work with all of our students as they're planning a transfer, because it's a big decision and a lot goes into that decision for transferring, and that's why we're here. Sherry and Autumn and I and our colleagues in financial aid and in credit evaluation, and advisors like Dr. Grow, who painstakingly go through credit evaluations and visit with our students and outline what a plan of study would look like. We used to call it a plan of action. I like that better. And just so that they have an idea of how long it would take that student to finish and what it's going to look like. When do I do my practicums? When can I expect a student teach? Those kinds of things. And we're happy to get that information for you, because it's a lot of information to take in. So, yeah. Any more questions for any of us?
Look at that, Lou.
What? I always think of my best questions after I hang up. You know, it's the story of my life. But if I think of something else, and you know, Danielle, I work with you. Obviously, you're not shy. I'm not shy. We'll keep in touch. Anna, you work with Autumn from DMAC.
Anna and I've had several correspondence back and forth, so I was excited to see her here today.
That's so neat. I just love it. And of course, Sherry McLean-Merton. Hello to everyone at DMAC, all of our friends there, including your husband. Tell him hello from all of us. Josh, it was so nice to have you aboard today. This was fun.
Yes, thank you. It was nice to meet you all.
And please don't hesitate, anyone, to call, shoot us an email, whatever is easiest. We will find the answer for you. If we don't have it right there at the time we're talking with you, we will get that answer and get it to you. We'll go straight to the top and talk to Lindsay Grow about all things education, and we'll get back to you quickly. Working ahead is so important, not only for your advising component, but also for financial aid, because that can be a concern for many of us. And we want to make sure that we give you everything, like in the advising area, everything in writing ahead of time, so there's no surprises for you, no surprises for our students. So thank you so much, all of you, for participating today. This was great. I learned a lot, and we'll just keep on keeping on. How's that?
Sounds
Thank you,
good.
everyone.